Wow. Matt Gaetz, a lightning rod for controversy.
I do not think that this is what Americans voted for.
A loyalist who will fight for Trump.
He's going to shake up Washington.
And shake up Washington is precisely the reason Donald Trump has named the congressman Matt Gaetz as his pick to become America's top law enforcement official. For who better to run the Department of Justice than the man who wants to overhaul that very department after it dared investigate Trump for his role in the 2020 election?
We also have to talk about this weaponized bureaucracy. I think that the government you are paying for is turned against you.
And yes, he's a lawyer, though an inexperienced one, but Gaetz is mostly qualified for the job because of his die-hard loyalty to Donald.
We are on a mission to rescue and save this country, and we ride or die with Donald John Trump to the end.
Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz is denying having a sexual relationship with an underage girl.
But it's those allegations against Gaetz which were the subject of an investigation by the same department he is now nominated to run, which have politicians baffled.
Striking. Just striking. Congressman Gaetz, who I do not know personally, certainly has a reputation as a fierce advocate for President Trump, but also has been the subject of credible allegations of significant severe misconduct. So.
Gaetz denied any misconduct and the sex trafficking investigation was dropped. But he's still the subject of an ethics probe, at least he was, but he resigned yesterday when his nomination was announced, so the probe, in theory, is now closed.
I am going to demand release of the Ethics Committee report, all of its findings and recommendations. Matt Gaetz has chosen to resign from the House, but he can't choose to conceal that information.
Bear in mind, all Trump's cabinet nominations need to be approved by the Senate. But having secured such a resounding victory, it's not surprising Republicans aren't lining up to question Trump's picks.
Were you surprised by the Gaetz nomination, though? What's your reaction to that?
No, I mean, I'm surprised by all the nominations in that I'm not part of the process.
But him in particular, what's your response to that?
What I just said to Mono, I mean, I think that the president's entitled to name his cabinet, and my assumption is I'll vote for all of the nominees.
Is he fit for that role?
Yeah, I mean, again, my presumption is I'll vote for all of the nominees.
Well, I voted for a lot of people I didn't like.
What do you think of him, though? What's your response to him?
I think he's very smart.
I barely know Gaetz. All I know is he likes picking fights on social media. He'll have to deal with that in committees, but I don't know his background. I'm going to look at it and give him a fair hearing.
Trump knows he's lobbed a bombshell into the Senate with his Gaetz nomination, which is why he's urging politicians to bypass the usual approval process and allow him to make his appointments unilaterally. That would certainly help with the woman he's chosen to oversee the country's entire intelligence operation. Tulsi Gabbard is a former Democrat who served in the army, is widely considered to be pro-Russia, and is Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence, putting her in charge of 18 spy agencies, including the CIA.
She has been quoted as saying that effectively Putin was justified in having Russia invade Ukraine because there were secret American biological weapons laboratories in Ukraine. I mean, this is Fantasyland stuff.
Even on Russian state television, they've joked about Gabbard being one of their agents. Hardly a good look for the prospective head of the CIA. But looks don't seem to matter in Trump's new world order, whether it's Matt Gaetz or Tulsi Gabbard. The president-elect is determined to surround himself with his people and dare anyone to challenge him.
Siobhan Kennedy reporting there. Now, I'm joined by David Cole, who is a former National Legal Director of the American Civil Liberties Union and is now Professor of Law at Georgetown University. He has litigated numerous cases in the Supreme Court. Thank you so much for joining us. Lots of chat about Matt Gaetz. What do you think he is appointed to do as Attorney General? Why has Trump picked him?
Well, he certainly hasn't picked him because he's qualified to do the job. He's barely practiced law. He's never prosecuted anybody. He's never run anything other than a political campaign. He was picked to do Trump's bidding. But what Trump has done is put somebody at the top of or try to put somebody at the top of the law enforcement apparatus in this country, overseeing 115,000 employees in the Justice Department, who is hardly beyond reproach, who is subject to credible allegations of sexual misconduct, drug use, illegal use of campaign contributions, illegal use of state identification records. And I think that's all going to come out, and I think it's going to be tough going for this man to be confirmed, even in a Senate that is controlled by Republicans.
Let's go into the realms of possibility, though. If he is confirmed, how much power would he have as Attorney General? What will this mean for the cases pending against Trump? Do they all just go away?
Well, the cases pending against Trump will go away no matter who heads up the Justice Department. That's ultimately the decision of the executive branch, and I think nobody expects the cases to continue against the federal cases to continue against Trump. But what Trump has said he wants to do is not just end his cases, but launch new cases in retaliation against his enemies, anyone who spoke out against him. And any lawyer worth his salt, anyone with any kind of credibility, would stand up to that and reject those efforts, as did Justice Department employees under Trump in the first administration. Matt Gaetz won't. That's why they picked Matt Gaetz.
And just throughout his rallies, he's spoken about revenge. And last year, he kind of said, well, he did say, I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the corrupt president in the history of the United States, Joe Biden, and the entire Biden crime family. Will Biden be in the docks?
Well, I think Biden has the advantage of the decision that Trump won in the Supreme Court, saying you can't prosecute a former president for official acts. So it'll be tough to prosecute Biden, but I think Trump will try to prosecute a lot of folks who were simply his political adversaries, who engaged in no criminal conduct. And he's, trying to line up the Justice Department, not to do justice, but to do his bidding. That's not the way it's supposed to be. I'm hopeful that the Senate will stand up to that. This guy, Matt Gaetz,
How
is
hopeful
not
are
popular.
you? How hopeful are you? Just because the Supreme Court, we've just said, has a conservative supermajority. He's got the House. He's got the Senate. There's meant to be good old checks and balances in the United States of America. Will he have those checks and balances this time?
I think, broadly speaking, he'll have those checks and balances if there's a strong upsurge of opposition and resistance, as there was last time. Yes, he has a majority in both houses, but he had that last time. Yes, he has a majority on the Supreme Court, but he had that last time. And nonetheless, the Supreme Court stood up to him. Congress stood up to him when he tried to repeal Obamacare. The Justice Department stood up to him when he tried to prosecute his enemies. The court stood up to him when he tried to challenge on fraudulent grounds the results of the election. So I very much hope that our system will survive, but it's going to be a serious challenge.
But the difference is this time is that a lot of those elements have been made in his own image. The Republican Party is now Donald Trump incorporated, essentially.
Well, I think that's largely true, but he has very slim majorities in both houses. So the most moderate elements of the Republican Party will have tremendous amount of control, just as the most moderate elements in the Democratic Party frustrated Biden on many occasions. That may well happen again with President Trump. It depends on how far he goes, but thus far, the kinds of people he has nominated, with totally unqualified people to lead some of the most important jobs in this country, I think he's undermining his legitimacy, even with his supporters. And I'm hopeful that some of them will have the backbone to stand up to him and to stand up for the rule of law and the Constitution. But only time will tell.
Only time will tell, indeed. David Cole, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.